Warning, this will repeat a global disaster unless we realize what's going on and we take action. When you look back through history, there were massive disasters that happened that led to massive casualties. And we can look back with the benefit of hindsight and see what went wrong. The problem is the quote that says that those who don't know history are bound to repeat it, doomed to repeat it. And that's exactly what happened. So in this video, I'm going to break down and show you exactly what's happening right now today, things I've been talking about, show you the policies that are being put in place that are forcing these actions. And I'm going to show you through the lens of history when these exact same things have been applied and exactly what happened. Hint, it's not good. And I'm going to tell you what we can do, hopefully, to change this before it's too late. So let's go. Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos to change the way you think about money because almost everything you've learned is wrong. Everything they're telling you is mostly wrong. And I'm going to show you exactly that. With the benefit of hindsight, we're going to dip into history to see exactly what's going on today, how that's looked throughout history, and that should give us an idea of what should come next. All right? You ready? Let's get into this. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about ESG, environmental, social, governance. It sounds so great, doesn't it? They always name these things that most people would like the Don't Kill Puppies Act. I mean, who would be against something like that, right? So we have ESG, which really at its core is central planning. We're going to talk about this quite a bit throughout this message. Central planning. That means instead of letting you or I dictate what's best for my life or your life, somebody far, far away centrally plans what you and I should be doing. Doesn't sound so good, does it? Let me show you how bad this is. So we have these global attacks that have been happening all around the world. When I talk about this attack, I mean an attack on your freedom, attack on your ability to choose what is best for your life. And of course, I've been repeating this over and over. Henry Kissinger gave us these warnings. If you watch my videos regularly, you know these by heart now. He said, of course, who controls the food supply controls the people. Control the food supply, control the people, controls the energy, controls the whole continent, and of course, who controls the money controls the world. So food, energy, money. Food, energy, money. Keep those three in mind. We talk about those all the time. Those are the attack vectors. But what I want to do today is I want to get a historical look, show you exactly what's going on today, and then we'll compare that to history. It's going to be fun. I know you guys love it when I give you these history lessons. At least you used to anyway. Leave me a comment. Let me know, do you love these historical comparisons? Should I do more of them? They're a lot of work to dig up. While you're at it, leaving that comment, you can click on that like button so more people see these videos and hit that subscribe button while you're at it as well. Oh, and the bell notification because that pesky algorithm sometimes like to shadow ban me. So you want to know when I put videos out. All right, so let's first look at this big case study I've been talking about quite a bit. We're talking about Sri Lanka. It's been all over the news. I've talked about it extensively. Well, it's not over mainstream news. Depends on where you get your news from. But what happened is in 2018, not that long ago, 4 years ago, of course, the World Economic Forum, our good old buddy Klaus Schwab and friends, they planned to get Sri Lanka to net zero emissions by 2050. Now, we could also plan to give everybody a unicorn in their backyard and have a tree that grows Skittles, and we could plan for lots of things. Doesn't mean those things could ever become true. And that's basically where we're at. There's no such thing as net zero. This is like greenwashing. That's a whole nother topic for another video. If you want, drop me a comment. We'll do something about that. But they had this great plan. By 2050, we're going to make it net zero. We saw the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka goes out bragging. This is on the World Economic Forum website. It says, "This is how I will make my country rich by 2025. Of course, the country has fallen. The country is completely overran. We'll talk about that. So didn't really work out too well. Well, what happened is that in 2021, the farmers were banned from using fertilizer to grow food. Now, there's a lot to this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this. You can just go do research on your own if you want. They banned the use of chemical fertilizers, which sounds pretty good. I like to eat organic. The problem is when you centrally plan it and you mandate it and you control it rather than letting the free market do its thing. And so they banned it, said, nope, you can't do that anymore. The problem is everybody needed it to grow food. And so when you don't have fertilizer to grow food, guess what happens? That's right, you get no food. That's exactly what happens. We can see that's exactly what happened. And the farmers were so mad, they basically gave up. Sri Lanka faces a quote-unquote man-made food crisis, and the farmers stopped planting. Why would they plant? They can't make any money, they can't produce any food, so let's not even bother. And of course, that's exactly what happened. So then, the same year, 2021, what do you think happened? A 35% drop. I have it right here, right from Wikipedia. I'd love to give you the receipt so you know I'm not just making stuff up. This is a 35% drop in fruit and vegetables, 40% drop in paddy production. We had, that was between 20 and 2021. And then we had a 50% decrease in their tea, and they make tea, which is their main export. So now they don't have an export product, and guess what happens? They don't have any money. You don't have any money, you can't buy any more food or more energy. Of course, guess what happens when people don't eat? Now, people can take a lot of abuse, but when you can't afford to eat or feed your family, all bets are off, and that's exactly what happened. The people overran the palace, the Prime Minister Palace, stormed it, swam in their pool. That's what well, I'm not gonna say the words. I'm on YouTube. I always have to censor myself. It's not fun. All right, now, the problem is that these bad ideas that have been tried throughout history, we're gonna go back in history in a minute, these bad ideas that just failed spectacularly in Sri Lanka are only spreading. You would think it would be like, well, that didn't work so well. We should probably not do that again. But no, instead, let's try it more places because maybe we just didn't get it right. And so we see now in Holland, I've been reporting on this if you've been watching my channel. In Holland, the Dutch have a very similar plan. What they want to do is reduce emissions, guess what, sort of the same way, by 50%. By 2030. The Dutch government unveiled its goals on Friday, mandating reductions of up to 70%, in many places as high as 95%, in others in a bid to protect nature. So they want to kill people to save nature, apparently. So they want to reduce by 70 to 95%. Of course, we can see that that is not, well, it's having about the same results as in Sri Lanka. A drastic plan to reduce emissions anger farmers. The government wants to reduce emissions by 50% by 2030. The same thing. You can see the farmers in the streets protesting because when you can't feed your family and you can't eat, you're going to be very angry. And that's exactly what's happening. Now we can see it happened in Holland. It happened with the farmers there. And then, of course, Trudeau in Canada, of course, he wants to try it as well. So now he's trying the same thing. Trudeau spars with farmers on climate. Canada wants to cut fertilizer emissions. Farmers say it could what? Result in less food. Of course it will. And if you have less food, what happens? People don't eat. And if people don't eat, what happens? Well, you've already seen the pictures. You already know the answer to that. But I'm going to show you how bad it can get. We have right here, less fertilizer equals less food. Canadian provinces protest Trudeau's fertilizer reduction targets. Says Canada plans to reduce 30% of its usage by 2030 to what? Meet climate targets. Okay, so you're starting to get the picture. Now, what's crazy about this to me is that at a time when the UN, this is actually from the World Health Organization, the WHO, per the WHO, global hunger continues to rise. 821 million people are hungry. 821, almost a billion. There's about 7.8 billion people in the world. Almost 1 out of 8 people are starving right now. But yet they want to reduce the food supply in Sri Lanka by 50%, reduce the food supply in Holland, which is one of the major exporters to Europe, reduce the food supply in Canada. Are you starting to get the picture? 1 billion people are starving per the WHO, and yet here we are reducing food. All right, now, you remember this slide? We haven't done this for a while. Let's go back in time. Let's go back in history to see when these exact same policies were implemented and exactly what happened. Like I said, those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Well, maybe someone will share this with one of our leaders. All right, let's go. All right, so for the first stop in history, we're not going that far back. We are going back a little less than 100 years ago. This is recent. This isn't ancient history. We're talking about the 30s and the 40s, all right? Not that long ago. In the Soviet Union, what happened? Well, under Stalin, he had this great idea to centrally plan. He was going to dictate how tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people lived their life. A complex system. We'll come back to that topic in a second. So Stalin, by himself, central planning, had a great idea. A 5-year, remember that word, or that number, 5-year plan to industrialize the nation. That was in 1927. So he wants to industrialize. He wants to get everybody from the farms and get them to be more productive, right? Okay, so what is he going to do? He's going to nationalize the farmland, nationalize it. What does that mean? Take it over. That means instead of having independent people run it, decentralized, it would be centrally planned. The government would just own it and they would control the means of production. Similar to what happened with Venezuela with the oil industry, similar to what President Biden keeps threatening to do with our energy industry in the United States. Remember that. Okay, so they nationalized the farmland. Now, in order to nationalize that, they had to take over the farmland. They had to take over the food. Now, socialism always leads to violence, always. Always, 100% of the time. The reason why is because when they go to take your farm, to take your factory, to take your house, some people aren't going to like that. And so it leads to violence. It's the only way, and so they did. They went and confiscated grain from the farmers at gunpoint. We're taking your land, we're taking your farm, and we're taking your grain. How you like that? Well, over 300,000 farmers protested, of course, and were deported. You're out of here. We don't want to hear it. We don't want anyone to hear what we've done to you. Okay. Now we can see this is the 5-year plan that Stalin had. His great idea, the 5-year plan. Objectives were to rapidly industrialize Russia, introduce socialized farming. Keyword socialized. That means the government controls the means of production, not the people. Elimination of private enterprise. Surprise, surprise, nationalization, development of education and transport. So we should control education and teach you what we want you to think, propaganda, and transportation. You shouldn't be able to move at will. We should be able to control your means of transportation, and target to keep Soviet Union on track. Well, didn't work out super well for them. During that period, 7 million people starved to death. 7 million people died of hunger between 32 and 33. Now this is a key, another 5. A 5-year plan, 5% of the population died. We can see what happened because when they nationalized the farms and nationalized the means of production, guess what happened? The food went down. Turns out central planning doesn't work so well. They couldn't produce food like the independent farmers could, and the amount of food went down. When your grain goes down by 50%, guess what happens? You don't have enough food. When you don't have enough food, guess what happens? Oh, that's right. 7 million people starved to death. We can see on a chart just to show how bad that is. This is the amount of deaths that happened. Look at that baseline. It's absolutely insane. Now, that wasn't the end of it. It's not like these problems are like, oh, well, we made a mistake and people died and we should just return things how they were. It doesn't work like that. As a matter of fact, what happens is you double down. Well, we didn't try hard enough, so let's try even harder. And then we saw another 25 million people starve to death between 1946 and 1947. So let's recap. 5-year plan to industrialize, sort of like the 5-year plan to cut carbon emissions by 2030, something like that. Then they nationalize farmland. Let's take it over. Let's control the means of production. You can't use this. You can only use this, right? You hear that. They confiscated grain at gunpoint. We don't have that yet. And then the people died. Okay, let's jump forward a little bit in history. And now we're going to jump to China. China, something known as the Great Leap Forward, done under Mao. What a great plan. It sounds awesome, right? They always make these things sound real attractive. And so, again, very similar. It was a 5-year plan. You're starting to get the drift here. 1958, the Great Leap Forward 5-year plan to do what? Same thing, industrialize the nation. Sort of like Biden's Build Back Better plan where they want to re-electrify or re-industrialize for the Green New Age, the United States. You're starting to catch the drift, I hope. Okay. During that time, agriculture was forced down from 50% to 20%. All right? Force it down. Why? Because let's get people out of the farms and let's move them to start manufacturing stuff. So during that time, we had less food. Now, these are reasons for the Great Leap Forward. I love this chart right here because there's political, social, and economic. Sort of like E, S, G, or this is the E, this is the S, this is the G. You starting to see how this is all just a repeat, nothing new under the sun, right? Okay, so they wanted a revolution to take control of industry and agriculture. You get that? Still a lot of unemployment, and Mao believed that he could mobilize the masses and put them to work. Build back better. Let's create all these shovel-ready jobs. And then the economic was determined to turn China into a powerful industrial nation. They wanted to industrialize. Of course, when that happened, they nationalized the food production. Remember, just like Russia, the farmers can't do it. We need to have the state control the means of production. Food production fell by 50%. Let's look at a couple charts so you can visualize how that worked out. Food production fell off of a cliff, and when that happens, what do you think happens? Well, gross domestic product goes down. Here's GDP growth, which has already been trending somewhat down, but look at this year. Look at it, the GDP growth fell off of a cliff. And so now they have no GDP, they have no money, sort of like Sri Lanka, which has no tea to export anymore, so they have no GDP. They collapsed. Oh yeah, same thing happened here. They don't have any food, and when you don't have any food and you don't have any money, guess what happens? Well, let me show you a chart. A lot of people die. This shows the amount of people that died under this program. It's not something to laugh about. Approximately 45 million people starved to death in China. 45 million from 1958 to 1962. Another 5%. A 5-year plan, 5% of the population. Are you starting to see how this works out? One little interesting tidbit about central planning. When you live in a complex system, the body's a complex system, the market's a complex system, the world's a complex system. You can't just tweak one thing without realizing there's going to be unintended consequences of lots of other things. This is the problem with central planning. Another thing that they did is Mao wanted to kill all the sparrows, the birds, those pesky little things. Well, he didn't realize that sparrows were actually needed because sparrows eat all these types of pests that destroy the crops. So they killed all the birds, but the birds were needed to eat the pests, and they ended up with an ecological disaster on their hands. And yes, even more people died thanks to central planning. All right, now, how does all of this happen? All right, how does this happen? I mean, come on. Like, why would these people let the government do this? And how did they get all this power? And then when it happened again, didn't they see this coming? Wouldn't they have stood up and said something? How does it happen? Well, it starts with very strong propaganda. Propaganda, we know better. We didn't try it right last time. We're going to try it better this time. We have better control. And then they hide and cover up all the data. I'm sure you might have seen that happen before. You know, censorship, manipulation, right? They cover up the data. They also like to eliminate anybody who might say otherwise. Now online, they wipe people off the face of the online world. And in Stalin's Russia, they did the same thing. In 1939, the people who took the census to count the people, he just got rid of them. He didn't want to hear from them. He didn't want anyone else to hear from them either. They just disappeared. Now, how does that happen? Well, it also happens, I'll let you draw your own conclusions. It just so happens that before these tragedies happened, the people were disarmed. So we can see here, in 1935, before the Great Leap Forward, from 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents were unable to defend themselves because what? They had established gun control. Same thing in Russia, 1929, the Soviet established gun control. So 1929, they established gun control, and then the farmers had all their stuff taken away, and then they all starved to death. In China, 1935, established gun control, took all the farmers' guns away, took all their land away, took all their food away, people starved to death. Oh yeah, Nazi Germany, 1938, took all the people's guns away. You're starting to get the idea here. But don't worry, you don't need guns because the government's going to protect you, right? So they got your back. You don't have to worry about that. But you have to understand that under central planning, under communism, it leads to disaster every time. The amount of deaths in China, in Russia, Cambodia, North Korea, you're starting to get the drift. Now, like I've said over and over, if you watch my channel regularly, you know, central planning always fails. It will always fail because one guy on the other side of the world does not know what's best for you or for me or for my life. He doesn't know how to grow food on my plot of land. Nobody does, all right? We need independent people, individualism. You can't manage, as I was saying, a complex system with central planning. There's not enough data. There's no way to organize that. And though it fails, they continue to try, and we've lost over 100 million people in the 20th century to that. And yet, here we are again, following the exact same playbook. Central planning, controlling the farms, nationalizing the industry, trying to reindustrialize the nation, and yet we're seeing it fail right before our very eyes. Sri Lanka, it's happening. The amount of food we're producing is decreasing. I showed you the charts from the WHO, and then of course we want to divide the people. That was really how in Stalin's Russia, in Germany, and in China, how they were able to do this is they get the people to turn on each other. The government is small. The military is small as a percentage of the population. They can't really do much. They have to get the people to turn on each other. It's the only way. Under Mao's Great Leap Forward, they had the Red Army, and he was it mentioned in his memoirs that he was shocked at how vicious these people were. But yet he did do nothing. He did nothing to stop them from doing that. Of course, we can see our central planners are preparing for this. The World Economic Forum says that we should start thinking about insects again. We should be eating insects, because that's going to be really good for us. Oh, and then per the New York Times, this was this week, pretty bad here. I don't know if I should read this out loud on YouTube, but I think you can probably see what that says. They're suggesting that maybe we should start to do that. Yeah, I think not. Not for me. All right, it's not too late. It's not too late to stop this. We can learn from our mistakes. How? Well, it starts with waking up and sharing this information. Maybe you weren't aware that these exact same things have been tried before in the disaster. Maybe you can share this with somebody else. Maybe we can wake enough people up, all right? We're not victims. We can control our fate. We have to band together. We got to wake people up, wake up the sleeping lions, as I like to say. We need to stop central planning. We need to have individual property rights. We need to have free and voluntary exchange. We need to abandon central planning policies. We need to reclaim our energy curve. Right now, what the governments of the world are trying to do is trying to take away our energy, right? You see it all over the world. I don't need to break that down. When I talk about the energy curve, I'm talking about like this. Humanity had been advancing on this blue line, and the red line is the energy curve. But you can see right here in 1971, it went flat. Right when we abandoned the gold standard, right when the World Economic Forum was developed, energy is what lifts people from poverty. Energy. Through the use of energy, I can use tractors, I can use machines, I can then, when I don't have to work and toil by hand all day, I can think about higher level tasks. It's through the use of energy that we lift people out of poverty. And of course, one of my favorite things, Bitcoin incentivizes the use of new energy. That's a big topic, it was a big video, but it was an important video because if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it, and I certainly don't want to. But what do you think? Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Is there a disaster waiting, or can we avert this? Yes or no? I'm optimistic. Are you? As always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like the video, that's okay. You can give me a thumbs down, but at least tell me why. Don't say you don't like it just because of the content, because I know it's bad news. But we can win, all right? We can win. As always, hit that subscribe button, the bell notification, so you know when I put new videos out. And that's what I got for today, all right? To your success. I'm out. Since you've stayed to the end, I know you like this video, which means you're probably gonna really like this video right here and this video right here.